Good afternoon, all. Shane Russo, Connections Coordinator here at Girard First. Today, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about something I read in the book of Numbers a couple days ago. It's been sitting with me since then. It's interesting that most of the stories in the Bible are told from the perspective of, the person, the hero, or the villain who's directly involved with knowledge from somebody else. But in the book of Numbers, chapters 22 through 25, the story is told from the perspective of I guess, the villain of the story, an enemy of the Israelites, as they're traveling towards the Promised Land, with no knowledge of it by the Israelites. So it's 3 chapters of a story told from the perspective of the opposing army, and in the story, the Israelites have no knowledge of what's going on. What makes it interesting is that the king of the opposing army, Balak, I think is how you pronounce it, he sends for a soothsayer, Balaam, who was a well-known soothsayer in that day. A soothsayer is just a person who could call down blessings or curses depending on what you needed, talk to the various gods in the Gentile world. In the Gentile world, the non-Jewish world, there were many gods, and so they would talk to whichever god they needed to make that happen. So the king, he basically hires this soothsayer to come rain down curses upon the Israelites so that they can beat them in battle. And again, all of this is unknown to the Israelites. But what is really interesting to me is that Balaam, this person who is hired to rain down these curses, first of all, he's very money hungry. So he tries to get as much as he can out of the king as he can, and also he knows he has to talk to the Hebrew God in order to get these curses to happen. So he actually in the story he talks to God, and God tells him no. Don't do this. The Israelites are not to be cursed. They're actually to be blessed. And so instead of just heeding that and giving it up and saying, okay, I'm not going to do that, he tries to milk more money from the king. And eventually he does. And God eventually lets Balaam go and try to work this stuff. But even then, he's irritated about it. And so the story is really great. I really recommend you read 23 through 25 in the book of Numbers. It's a really amazing story with some great poetry. The oracles in there are great. But the point I'm getting at is this. Once Balaam finally gets in front of the king, he starts giving these oracles, these predictions, sort of, these blessings and curses. And instead of doing any of the cursing, God orders Balaam to only say what he tells him to, and they end up being blessings upon the Israelites. So instead of cursing him, this king has now paid this guy to bless his enemy. Eventually, he sends him away, and the story ends with the destruction of the Moabites. That's the opposing army there, and Balaam dies in that. But all of that sat with me because I started to think that, are there instances in our own lives when people who seem to be on the opposite side of God, or on the opposite side of us, or just completely disagree with us, or even want harm for us, are there times when God has used that to bless us? Are there times when what would seem to be an enemy really turned out to be a blessing? I think, me personally, there was a time when this is a story that's known throughout the church. It should be anyway, that, I have an education degree, but I cannot teach in the state of Ohio due to things. If you want to know about that, come talk to me. We'll talk about it. It's not a story I hide, but it's really interesting because at the time that it was going on, I really thought that the person who was orchestrating all of this was an enemy, and still probably was. He sought to do me harm, but in the end, look at where I am now. Look at what I'm doing now. I'm actually able to live out my calling because somebody who sought to do me harm actually brought a blessing upon me. So I that's probably why this story sat with me so much. Is just because I have personal experience where somebody who sought to do me harm really ended up doing well by me, even though they didn't mean to. And that's sort of what this story talks about here. And there are many levels to that story, but that's just one of them, where this king sought to do harm to the Israelites by hiring a person who was just greedy. And in the end, they both ended up blessing the people of God. And so I ask you to look into your past, look into your present right now, and see, is there something going on in your life that you feel might be a curse, that maybe down the road you'll see as a blessing? I mean, you never know. So I hope you're having a good day, and I hope this does something for somebody, and I'll see you all on Sunday.